Welcome to the Jaime Luce podcast. Thank you for joining me today. We actually have a treat. Last week, we recorded part one of what we called Where Have All the Men Gone with special guest Cedric Benson. And today, the treat is we have him back. We had too much material to cover and we needed to do a second one. So welcome back to the studio.
Thank you. Thank you. And I have to say before we get started, a real man should always be transparent, should be honest. With that being said, I was late today. And Jamie, in her good-natured way, sent me a text and said, "Good afternoon. Are you on your way?" Lucy translated. And I said, "Oh, no." And we just talked about being on time. But I'm here now.
Yes. And we're excited that you're here, and we won't skip a beat. It'll be just fine. So you are forgiven, a real man for sure. Owning up to it, standing up.
Didn't have the dress shirt on. I said I'll just come as you are.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And I'm glad that you're here. So we've got a lot to cover.
Yes.
And again, the topic is a really deep, important topic. And just even before starting, we both were realizing some of the things we could talk about today, and they really are, they're meant to kind of rock us in our hearts and in our minds, and to take us maybe from whatever place we're in to a better place, a stronger place, a place of growth. And so I'm excited about this.
I am too. I love it. Men should be challenged. I love usually when you go to church on Mother's Day, it's we love you, you're awesome, you're incredible, we couldn't do anything without you. Go to church on Father's Day, it's the stand up, make it happen. Yeah. It's all your fault. And that's the way it should be.
Well, and to champion the ones who are, because there are many good ones out there.
Absolutely.
I don't want to seem like I'm bashing on the guys,
No.
But I do think that our society is in many of the predicaments that it's in right now because we've attacked men as being men. We didn't somehow, we felt threatened by a man's strength, and that's not how it should be. We should be encouraged by man's strength, and we should be empowered by that, felt protected by that. So it is a shame that we've come to such a place that the confusion is almost to where we've tried to just flip roles. So we now want the woman to do everything a man did, and we now want the man to not do anything a man did, but he is to do what the woman did.
Right.
I mean, it's just a real confusion in our society, and men are needed. God called the man to be the man first. He created him first. He considered him to be the head. He was given tasks that were to dominate. He was told in Genesis 1 and 2, he creates all this and says, okay, take dominion. Yes. He tells the man to do that. I mean, that's part of his makeup. It's part of who he is. And to subdue. I mean, these are strong words. These are not mamsy-pamsy words. And it takes some doing especially for those who didn't have that example, to think, well, then how do I do that? How is that even done if it's not been modeled for me? How do I even do that? So we want to kind of hit those again. And you mentioned something last week, and I'd like to bring it up again. And you gave an acronym or an acrostic of what the word real means for real men. You said that the R stands for reject passivity. E is expect God's greater reward. A is for accept responsibility, and L is to lead courageously.
Yes.
What is it about that spoke to you?
It all spoke to me because, like you just said, a lot of men don't have that example. They don't have that model. And me coming from a teaching background, they say the best way to teach is you have to model what you're teaching. And also being a coach in basketball, it's easy to tell someone verbally what to do, but unless a child or a young man sees how to do that, he's not going to do that. And you have to reject passivity. And like you were just talking about in Genesis, when God told Adam, go name the animals, take dominion. Right. These aren't like, well, if you feel like it, if you're up to it. He goes, this is what I need you to do. Right. I expect this from you. And I thought about this a lot, especially being in the school system. And I watch young boys kind of be beaten down because you always tell them, okay, little Johnny, stop moving so much. It's what boys do.
Right.
They're very active. They're very aggressive. And you have to try and guide that a little bit. And I don't want to say that the school system is specifically geared toward women, but it caters to girls a lot more than boys.
Right.
And because me, and it helped that I had a little child mentality when I was a teacher. So I related to the boys a lot. And yeah, they're going to move a lot and they're going to get antsy and they're going to stand up. And then they go on recess and they just want to destroy and have fun and do all that. And you have to let boys be boys, because that's how they grow up to reject passivity and to lead courageously and to accept God's great reward.
That's good.
I love it when boys are out there doing things. And I talked last week about my cousin, how he didn't have that example. Mm-hmm. And I think it's just an innate desire in men, especially young boys, to find that example.
Right.
And if that example is not in the home, they will go find it.
Yeah.
Because it's like just a moth to the flame. They're looking for that. And whoever gives it to them is the winner.
Yeah, that brings up a great point. I've been reading from the time I knew we were going to have this conversation. I ordered a book. I wasn't even sure if it was a book. I was hoping it was. I had remembered a message I had heard years and years ago. I can't even tell you when, by Dr. Mark Hanby, that I had seen him on Christian television. And the name of the message he preached that night was, "You Have Not Many Fathers." And I looked it up, and it was made into a book. So for those watching on YouTube, here's the book. I'm sure it's probably backwards, but anyway, there it is. And I don't know how easily available it is, but the foreword on this book was written by T.D. Jakes. And what you just said, he basically says the same thing. And this is what he said: "It is a tragedy for sons to misalign themselves to someone who cannot speak to their destiny." That the purpose of a father is not just in providing for the home, which he does. And it's not just in, part of being a man is how you treat a woman. That's the first thing God gives to man is the woman. After telling him what his job is, he now gives him relationship. And we have to know how to handle that relationship. I know we've got a few scriptures to reference that. And I'm sure people have heard this before, and this is not to beat the dead horse, but to remind people that this is the way it looks. Absolutely. According to scripture. 1 Peter 3:7, "Likewise, husbands, live with your wives in an understanding way." And that does not mean that a woman is weak because the husband is being understanding. Right. I mean, there are so many women out there who their complaint is, "My husband doesn't listen to me." It's not that he's not providing or he's not doing these other things. They want him to be understanding, yes. Right? Yes. And yet then we attack the man if we think that if he's taking the time to do this, he must not be doing something else. And we kind of find our way through the badgering process of just almost succinctly taking item by item and tearing manhood down.
Yeah. And I think it's done intentionally. And that's ironic because you and I didn't compare notes, but I had 1 Peter 3:7 written down as well. Yeah. And just listen to your wife in an understanding way. And I had to learn that, especially, when I had my wife and now my 2 daughters, is to listen to them. And I'm still learning this. It's like, do you want me to solve this, or do you just need me to listen?
Yeah.
Like, okay, no, Dad, I just need you to listen. Okay, I am listening. But I have to fight that urge because everything inside of me is yelling, screaming, like, I got a solution.
Yeah.
But I don't want to hear a solution. I just want you to love on me, to understand, to lead and be there and be an encourager. Mm-hmm. And that's what I want from you. And a lot of men have trouble because it wasn't modeled for them.
Right.
So that we normally become dads or we become husbands based on what was put before us, unless you make a conscious choice to change that.
Right.
And I do remember that from my dad growing up. There was a time, I think I was in middle school. And like I said last week, my mom was the talker. Yeah. And then she would talk and talk. So after about an hour and a half talk from her one day, I was fuming. There was steam coming out of my ears and I was just on edge. And I walked outside and I wanted to just mangle something. And my dad came outside and he looked at me and goes, "I can see the look in your eye. You're upset. You're upset with her." And this changed my whole world. He goes, "As upset as you are with her, be careful how you speak to her and be careful what you do. Because if you do anything to her that hurts her, you're going to have a huge problem with me." And I'm thinking, like, we're on the same team. It's me and you. He's like, "Nope." He goes, you are down there she comes first.
Yeah.
You have a problem with her. You have a problem with me. You do not want a problem with me.
Yeah.
I'm like, I thought, you know what? I'm taking away your man card, Dad. I can't trust you.
And yet, by preserving that relationship, he was protecting you
Yes.
and teaching you in
Yes.
that relationship.
Yes.
We get that so mixed up nowadays.
Yes.
We make the kids almost as if we're married to the kids and not the spouse. And then we wonder what has happened when it goes sideways. Something's missing, something was lost. And it's because that relationship has to be watched over in order for these to receive what they're going to get. I mean, that's just part of the way it's designed. And we're all figuring that out, I'm sure. But it can't be ignored. The home life, you can be a good father and you can't stake your whole manhood. I'm a good man because I'm a good father. Being a man is more than just being a father.
Right.
And you can father lots of kids and not be a father. So, there's even that argument, but that we have to be so on guard. I think the women that are nurturers by nature, because of the womb, that's just part of your physiology. Because of the womb, you are a natural nurturer.
Right.
But it's a mistake to want someone who is without those same mechanisms to be the nurturer that we are. It comes, the strength, the nurturing is one thing, but the strength, the power, the correction, that's a whole different thing.
Absolutely.
And that comes from the man.
Yes.
So,
I've lost track, Jamie. I've seen it inverted so many times, being a teacher, being in the classroom and looking at certain kids. And I've seen how the family unit has basically been inverted and where the kids are basically leading the household.
right.
And the whole family unit just falls apart. And God had a specific design for the family where fathers are to lead,
Right.
and work with their wives in an understanding way. And children, my dad was children should be seen, not heard. If I want your opinion, I'll give it to you.
Yeah.
Type of thing. But I've seen it in today's schools, and especially with the advent of divorce. And I've seen so many I've seen so many women where they placate to their children so much to protect them from the hurt that happened from the separation of the family, that they've given them all these things that they haven't earned yet, deserved yet, to make them feel good about themselves. And it was really scary. I've seen a lot with young boys who are with single mothers. And a friend, I listened to it, it's a Southern term, the being raised by the Dems. You know what the Dems are?
No, you go ahead.
Mama and Dem. Grandma and them, auntie and them. But you see that so much. It's like so many boys being raised by the Dems, and that there isn't a man around. And that's why it's so important. I think you mentioned it last week, to have those coaches around, or those surrogate fathers if a dad isn't in the house, to teach them how to be men.
Right. Well, you had sent me a clip. I had never seen this clip before. And when you sent it to me, it was so moving, and it is so pertinent to what we're saying, because you can be a father and still be a missing father. That the elements of what comes from a father cannot be, they can't be gained any other way. In fact, I wanted to, if I can find it quickly in what I wrote here in my notes. Fathers pass along history. They pass along heritage. I mean, this is why we talk about even our nation. We call them our founding fathers. They have given something to us that is of such value that their life was worth giving it for. When they gave it, their families understood they were doing something, pioneering something that was so much bigger than themselves. I mean, the modeling of that for generations. It's why we have a military who still understands the freedoms that we have been given were bought with blood. This was the lives. These men didn't get paid to be politicians to make these laws and these rules. They had jobs and farms and other responsibilities and families. And they, along with their families, made the decision to do whatever was necessary to give this and pass this on. And that can only be done by the fathers. When the men would go, the women had to stay at home, of course, but what was to be gained, the inheritance that was to be
Right.
gained, the territory that was to be taken came from the fathers and is passed from the fathers. So let's go ahead and take a look at this clip. We're going to share with you from The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, a very poignant scene where Will is having a conversation, or is about to have a conversation with his father. Powerful scene. It made me think that not only his complaint was, I had to learn to do all these things by myself. I didn't have that example, and I had to figure it out on my own.
Right.
And to those who have, I'm sorry that you had to do it that way, and I'm so proud of you that you've worked so hard to figure it out. And we're hoping today that this will encourage people to understand the value of who they are as a man, and want to walk in that value, and to pass on what they need to pass on. And it made me think of the scripture. It was gripping to me when I saw it this way, and I had never seen it this way before. But in John 5:19, in the second half of the verse, Jesus said this: "The Son can do nothing of himself but what he sees the Father do." And I had never seen it in the light of a father and son before, but that's exactly what he's saying. I don't do anything that I don't see what my Father is doing. I don't say anything that I haven't heard him say. I take all of my cues from my dad.
Right.
That's what I do.
Yeah. Like I shared last week, my up until the lockdown shut us down last year, for like the last 13 years, my dad and I would have breakfast the first Saturday of each month, or we would just sit together. And still at my age, I would just glean information from him and talk to him. But looking back on now, growing up, my dad and I had many talks, but a lot of things that I learned is just me just watching.
Yeah.
Watching Dad, the commitment to work, to get up and to work diligently, to be there for your family. I don't know if I shared it last week or not. My dad wasn't a big sports guy, but so I did that on my own. But the impact, I remember two distinct moments. I think out of the hundreds and thousands of basketball games that I played, I think he's maybe been to two or three. He came to one in middle school, and you're sitting in the gym and you're playing around and you see Dad, and something just welled up in me. I'm thinking, and it was very selfish. And I was like, no one's getting the ball today.
Yeah, because my dad's watching.
My dad is when I didn't verbalize it.
Yeah.
But it was just something that was just in me. Like, my dad is here, and he came to only one of my college games. Mm-hmm. And I think I had my career high against Azusa Pacific graduates out there. That's when I went off and had my best game ever, because my dad was there.
Yeah.
And he showed me that I was important to him.
Right.
One weekend, we also had a routine of going to the barbershop together every 2 weeks, and that was our thing. And we were there one Saturday, and the conversation turned a little risque with the men who were in the shop. And my dad looked at me and goes, "Cedric, take the car keys, go sit in the car," because he said, because these idiots don't know how to talk.
Right.
And that right there told me, it's like, he was just looking out for me,
right?
Because he didn't want my little ears to hear things that I shouldn't hear. And he wanted to be an impact player in my life. And my dad wasn't a man of big words, but I watched him do so many things that I just adapted for me today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that, we don't even think of it so much as everything that we saw in Jesus. We don't to me, I didn't. This is the first time these thoughts were rolling in my head, was that every time that Jesus showed compassion, that was because the Father was modeling compassion to him. Every time he saw that someone was sick and needed healing, it was because the Father was healing. Anything that we know, Jesus said, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father.
Right.
You've seen him.
Yeah.
I'm him.
Right.
And that's what we're supposed to be doing.
Right.
Whether mother or father, our roles that we play, what you do for a living does not define who you are. It might be you choose to provide for your family, and that's important. Define who the person is necessarily, but it is how you then take whatever that is, that means of who you are, of providing, and then turn and show that to your family.
Right.
The way that you do that, and the way that you get up, like we teased even coming in here about, but being on time, or doing the things that we do, excuse me, that we are doing those things, emulating what is valuable, what's important. And
a friend of mine was telling me about a great book. I need to pick it up, and I think I'm going to get the title wrong, but it's called The 3 Mile Per Hour Jesus, and how Jesus kind of, when he saw the woman in the well, he took time to spend with her and to listen.
Right.
And he knew everything about her. He knew all of her missteps and all her mistakes and stuff, but he took time to listen to her and to encourage her and edify her and lift her up. And that taught me a lot about, especially with my daughters, and to take care of their little hearts and to encourage them and lift them up. And like I shared last week, I am the first man to tell them that they're beautiful, that they're incredible, and they're awesome. Now, I have a hidden agenda. I don't want any other man coming in and taking my place. So let's be honest. But they need to hear that from me. And I learned that from not only my earthly father, but from my heavenly Father. Don't be in such a rush. Don't be so important that you don't have time to invest in the people who really matter. That's your family and your community.
It's so good that you say that. I just literally, before we started this today, I was on my phone and I was going through some things, and I came across a post that my daughter had reposted, who is now a new mother. And the post was about a mom talking about a trip the family had just been on in the car, and how many times they had to stop to go to the restroom for this child. And that she goes, I don't know how many times, what time it was. I don't know how many we'd already stopped for. I don't know what city we were in, what state we were in when this happened. But at the moment that it happened, she was so full of frustration of having to stop one more time and trying to walk the child to the bathroom without being angry that the child's bladder is full, and to deal with the child in such a way that the child doesn't know that they're upset and frustrated that they're having to do this. And what corrected her heart was a passage that she had remembered reading when the children of Israel were coming out of Egypt. And it says that they went the pace basically of the children. And that,
awesome.
That you had to be mindful of the kids, and you could only go as fast as those kids could handle.
Right.
And I thought, what a beautiful lesson about being a father or a mother. If you're doing this without a dad in the home, and your frustration level is off the charts, that it's okay that it takes time. It's okay that other things have to wait. It's okay, because that's part of that passing, not just the model, but the how-to and the attitude that goes with it. And I think our kids learn so much more than what we think we're teaching them. They're watching the look on our face. They're watching the quickness or the slowness of our attention to the matter that they're dealing with, like how quickly we come to their aid, or how, they're watching so many things to see what is important, what's not important.
Yeah.
And it's done without trying. We teach without trying, and we learn many times without trying.
Yeah. What's that old saying? I can't hear a word you're saying. Your actions are too loud.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I just love that clip you just showed, it, the acronym of Real Men, the A, accepting responsibility.
Right.
And I think what Uncle Phil was telling that gentleman is like, okay, so you didn't make the most money, you weren't the best, but he's yours.
Right.
Accept responsibility for that, and be, like I talked about last week, be a star in your role.
Right.
My girlfriend right now, she works at a men's prison, and she was telling me a story of dealing with one young man, 20, I want to say 25, who said he has, I think, 10 or 11 kids on the outside. And he said, you haven't seen anything. He said, my dad, I'm one of 22.
Wow.
And that pattern of just, and like you're saying earlier, it's one thing you can make a bunch of kids, but it's one thing to be a father.
Right.
and to be there for them and to pour into their lives and encourage the next generation.
Right.
Huh.
Yeah. And, being a man, we know, is not just being a father.
Right.
Being a man is standing. I think part of being a man is no matter what what you think your purpose is, or the thing you're fighting for, or the thing that you are standing for, wherever you're at in life and whatever that thing is that you're working towards or doing, the way that you go about those things is a picture of who you are as a man. What's important? What things do you pick to be important? How do you prioritize in life? Are you doing something that is for you only? Not that we can't do things that are just for us, but are you living for a bigger purpose than just yourself? I think if I go back to the garden, Adam's first job was to take care of an entire area. It wasn't just it would go beyond. It would go beyond him. God gave him everything. I mean, he gave him everything. It's a lot of responsibility. He gave him everything, and that in that everything and working that, even once they fell, you see that he had to do the work. It was going to now be much harder work, but he did the work.
Yes.
And he was teaching the boys to do the work. I mean, that's where we come up with the problem with the boys, right?
Right.
So you have one who's doing what he's supposed to be doing in the way he's supposed to be doing it, and one who kind of doesn't want to do it that way. He kind of wants to do it on a different way.
Right.
And he's not happy when he's corrected.
Right.
I mean, and it wasn't even his own father who corrected him. This is a bad term, but it was more like grandpa. It was Father God was doing the correcting, and he didn't want to hear it. I mean, I think it takes just as much being a man to not just be one who can give correction and lead, but one who can take that correction. I read somewhere in this book, I'm not exactly sure who said it and what it was, but it was that God is looking for sons who are willing to become fathers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We've known each other for a few years now, and despite what's been going on socially, I try to be a basketball fan, but it's hard. But anyway, one of my favorite all-time coaches is Mike Krzyzewski of the Duke Blue Devils. He's kind of like today's John Wooden, and his name alone draws recruits to him. I mean, he's just that guy, and for who he is and what he stands for and his character. And he can go to any top 5 recruits house in the nation. And he looks down, he meets with them, and he meets with their family. He says, the first thing I look for, he said, I could care less if they have a 47-inch vertical leap. I could care less if they can make 33 pointers in a row. I am looking at how they react to mom and dad. And if they're sitting there, he said he'll just walk out of the house. If a dad or a mom says, "Oh, honey, can you get coach something?" and he's, "Oh, mom," he's like, that you're not teachable. You're not willing to. You don't know your role. Because in order for you to be a good leader on my team, first you have to learn to be a good follower.
Right.
And the way you treat mom and dad, it tells me a lot about you. I said that was pretty impactful.
Yeah. And that's even what we saw in Jesus with disciples. We talked about that last week, that being a disciple is that job of becoming the one that you are emulating. It's not just the discipline, which discipline is necessary, but at the same time, it is also the understanding that I am growing into this other person. We get so caught up in and the society loves this term, but they have to find themselves. Right. And I would like to interject that it's not that hard if you don't try to lose yourself. Right. I mean, if you were if you're born into a situation where, and granted, there are tons of them all over the place now, so this is not meant to at all browbeat somebody. Right. But for those of us who have been given, it's been already given to us, established for us, a model, and for the most part, a good model, then we should be trying to at least attain to that, but then to exceed that. Because any good parent wants their child to go further than they ever went. It's like, here, get on my shoulders, jump from here. Don't start over again. Right. We don't want to have to do this all over again. It's why parents try so hard to tell their kids, learn from what I'm teaching you with my mouth versus having to go through what I went through to learn it, because you have the advantage then of being able to start so much further along. And that but you have to want that. You have to desire that. There are examples in scripture of that. Think about Elijah and Elisha. You have Elijah. Elisha was not his son. It wasn't his natural son. But when he cast an opportunity to him to become something so much more than where he was,
right.
He ran. He didn't just, this is amazing to me, because he wasn't worried about offending his father.
Right.
He didn't just leave the ranch.
Right.
He broke all the pieces of wood and slaughtered the animal I'm never going back there again. I'm heading in this new direction, and made a sacrifice of where he was at to get further. He actually made a sacrifice, literally sacrificed what he had so that he could go further and become more. Right. That shows a wonderful character in someone who can see the opportunity. He went and followed, and literally for years did nothing but basically wash his hands and take care of him.
Right.
He's just taking care of him.
Right.
And you think, why would you leave from all purposes that we can see? He had a large inheritance from his mother and father already. And yet there was something even more, but he had to serve and to learn in order to attain it.
Absolutely.
And in order to receive it, he had to be there till the very end with it. To take it all the way to the end.
Right.
Not be someone who just gives up, does it halfway. Like we said, you can have a child. That's only the very, very, very beginning. You've got to grow up, help that child grow up, be there till the end,
Become a man.
Become a man. Yeah.
Absolutely. I was looking at that one verse. I was talking about Galatians 3:26-29. It says, all are sons of God through faith in Christ Jesus. And I wanted to bring that up because I've been getting a lot of heat and stuff from different people with the whole Black Lives Matter thing and the whole BLM thing. And if you look at their initial website, I think they've taken it down now. It said their goal was to tear apart the nuclear family unit, the Western family unit, with the mother, father in the house. And that affects, so many people, but I'm talking about the Black family unit. You take the father out of any home, the whole family just crumbles and falls apart. Right. And I said, well, why would you want to do that? And I think, like we were saying earlier, it's just for some reason our world is bent on taking men out of their roles as leaders. Right. And then we just have all these passive men who don't want to, they accept passivity. They don't want to expect God's great reward. They don't want to accept any responsibility. Right. It's easier to play video games 7, 8, 9 hours a day. Yeah. And they don't want to lead courageously, and they don't know how. Yeah. Like, how do I lead courageously? And I think something you figure it out. You just, first of all, you make the decision to stand in the gap. Right. I'm going to stand in the gap, and I'm going to protect my family. I'm going to protect my home. I'm going to protect my community. I'll figure out how later. Right. But the how isn't nearly as important as the why I'm doing it. Right. And I'll figure that out later. And that's with anything worth doing in life. You may not know how. Even starting a podcast, doing these things, I'd never done them before. So you're starting from a place of not knowing. Well, first of all, you got to get guests who show up on time. Let's start there. Well, you did make it, so we're here. We're getting it done. And even in that's a great example too, because things like this, things happen. In that clip, he's saying something came up, right? It can welcome to life. Yeah, everything is gonna always be that way. I've always said that for people with attending church, every couple is going to have their fights on Sunday morning. The kids are going to go crazy on Sunday morning. Something's going to happen in order to keep you from going to church. It'll happen that way every week. Mm-hmm. And my grandmother had taught us a lesson. And passed it my mother, and then my mother passed it to us. But it was, if it works one time, I guarantee you're going to have that every single week. Absolutely. Absolutely. And if we aren't people who take responsibility, if we aren't people who are able to receive correction and growth in our lives, and we don't want to be the ones who have to do the work of whatever it is that we're wanting. Look at the whole sports industry by itself. We have watched how many countless young men's lives go
through the ringer. They lose out. They've been jailed. Mm-hmm. They've killed people. They're dead now because they were handed something that they had not yet learned how to be responsible for.
Right.
We gave them too much before they were ready. And most of them may not even have had an example to know what to do with that.
Right.
But then you have no one even around them who's teaching them, even from the outside, whether it be an uncle or a cousin, or if you're in the church world, to have somebody who's giving you an example of, hey, did you think about this? You may want to set this up to protect yourself, and don't think about just today. Let's think about tomorrow, and to make decisions that affect the rest of our lives, not just this moment.
Right.
And that if we don't have those things, you could have everything and end up with nothing.
Right. And you hear that so much, especially these athletes who have fallen from grace. Not all of them, the vast majority of them, it's like, okay, where was dad?
Right.
Growing up? And you hear some of these athletes, when they acknowledge someone, not that she shouldn't be acknowledged, but they acknowledge mom.
Right.
Because, dad wasn't around. And I think I stole I stole this meme from you just a few days ago. And you talk about the importance of going to church on Sunday and making that a non-negotiable, or just being around a community of Christians. Right. And people say, well, just because you go to church doesn't make you a Christian. And I think you posted, you said, being a husband, just going home doesn't make you a family. But if you don't go, things will start to fall apart.
Right. You
have to make a conscious effort to get around that community. And for other, like for me growing up, like I said, my dad wasn't always around to talk to me, but I found other men whose lives I wanted to emulate.
Right.
Not completely, but I saw, like I said last week, I saw how they held hands with their wives and how they spoke to her in an understanding way. Right. And how they took the time to care for her. And right. You glean that, and you take pieces from, but you have to make a conscious choice about who am I going to associate with? Who am I going to hang out with? And who am I going to learn from?
Yeah, that brings up an interesting thought, because when you talked earlier about kids in school, boys in particular, where it's not really conducive to a boy, the way that we've designed the classroom and how the system is supposed to work. And yet with girls, we encourage the dream of to go ahead and dream about what you're looking for. If whether they want to be a princess or whether they want to be married and have children and play house. And girls are encouraged to dream about who they're going to become and what they're going to do. And yet we're constantly telling boys the opposite.
Right.
It's sad.
Get real.
Yeah, you can't do that. Do you really think that's attainable? That's not going to happen. To all those who want to be the superstar in sports or whatever it is, okay, you need to live in reality. Only so many percentage of people and we totally teach them at a young age, don't dream.
Right.
Not that they will all become those things.
Right.
But they will learn along the way by dreaming bigger and better. If I don't have an example, I'm looking to people, just like you said, and this could be the encouragement that we want to give people. If you don't have this, if you don't know what to do, first of all, if you do it.
Right, exactly.
If you do, fix it, correct it, do it,
right.
Start today. Finish well. Even if you didn't start well, finish well. But for those who don't know, it's when I see anybody out there doing whatever it is that is catching my eye that I'm wanting to do, your eye will find the ones that you think, now that's the way I think it should be. I like that.
Right.
There are examples out there to look at.
Right.
And that we should be those kind of people who then make it. If I haven't been taught, then I'm going to go learn.
Exactly. Be
Be a learner, even if you've not had it modeled for you.
Right.
Turn around and be the one who goes and learns, because by that learning, good teachers are people who love to learn.
Exactly.
So you take something, you study it, they say, now go around and teach it, because if you teach it, you'll even learn it better again yourself.
Yes.
So that whole model of we can become, even if we didn't have, we still have the opportunity to become what we did not have.
Absolutely. So, it's out there if you're looking for it. I mean, like Proverbs, the wisdom screams from the mountaintops. It's there for everyone. And some people just choose to ignore it. Some people listen to it. And we know those who listen to it because we see the fruits of that. And we talked about this last week. It's easy not to listen to it because sin is fun.
Right.
Ignoring responsibility, being passive. it's so much easier than doing the work of becoming the person you need to be to lead a family and to lead a son.
Right. But sadly, then the end of that is you lose out on everything you thought you had.
Right.
I mean, that's the trick of sin.
Yeah.
That's what it's fun for a season. It is.
Oh, yeah.
It's enticing.
Absolutely.
It looks good, feels good, seems
Yep.
good, and for a while it is.
Mhm.
And it knows how to lure you. It knows how to call to you. It's like the old cartoons that I'm going to date myself, but when they would have the girl with her eyelash, it would go out and it would do the finger and beckon you to come, you know,
Yes.
and that's totally what sin does. But you can have that for so long and you will still be empty.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, my girlfriend and I were talking about that yesterday on our way back from Palm Springs, and like how the sin, it doesn't yell at you, it doesn't scream at you. It's a very quiet whisper,
Right.
and that slowly after a while it erodes with you if you keep doing it for days and
Right.
weeks and months, and then one day you're like, how did we get here?
Right.
It's like, well, you started way back here. You just ignored the little whisper,
Right.
and now this has become a part of your life, and you're wondering why your house is figuratively burning down.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, you know, and I would encourage people to recognize that in finding a model, because even if I right now feel like I've had good models, I'm still looking.
Absolutely.
Because I don't know what tomorrow holds. So I'm still looking for those shining stars and bright lights out there who are doing things well and thinking, boy, I should do that. I still want to be the learner. I still want to be the one who can still do more.
Right. Well, you are blessed, my friend, because I've heard your mom speak.
Yeah.
You are blessed.
I am.
And then that's terrible for you because you can't say, well, I didn't know what to do.
No, I totally do. That's the wonderful accountability of having a good parent, I had a strong father. He did lead the house.
Right.
Mom, though, is just as strong.
Yes.
They were both very strong. That's why I'm always confused why people are threatened. I've always felt that, in fact, my dad has said this before. He says, it takes a strong man to be able to love a strong woman.
Yes.
And the stronger men know how to do that.
Right.
That they're not intimidated by a strong woman. They actually feel like, okay, this is good. We can do this. We can, yeah, exactly. What do we want to say? That's the
what's it? As iron sharpens iron.
Yes,
yes,
it is, and it produces great strength.
Absolutely.
For me as a child to see and have it be on both sides of the aisle, I know that I'm truly blessed. I know that, and I don't. Again, I find it difficult sometimes to talk to a situation with people because they think you don't know, you haven't been there. I haven't been in someone else's shoes. I haven't been there, but I have had friends who didn't have it. And it was awful. I had one friend in particular growing up. She didn't have her father around, and her mother was checked out for the most part. I mean, she was, paying the bills, but when it came to parenting, she kind of had just checked out.
Right.
And we thought that the girl had it easy, had it great. No one was questioning her. She could stay out as long as she wanted and do what she wanted. And we all thought that was great until we actually heard her little broken voice say, I wish she cared.
Right.
And then you recognize the pain that had brought. And there's so much pain. Oh my gosh, we're a world that's just weeping. Really, yes. Our world is weeping. Look at the generation that we have right now, that not only do we have missing instruction and leadership in their lives, but then we, because of the times we're living in, have lockdowns, and we don't even have teachers present because they can't be in the classroom, or, you're supposed to stay at home and not see anybody and isolate yourself. And all of those things that we know that do a number on the heart and the mind, to tear down whatever you might be trying to build. We'll take somebody who's already fragile and do that to them, and see what the outcome is. I mean, that's what we're going to be dealing with here in the next little bit. So even more now than ever, do we need men to truly stand up and be men?
Absolutely.
We need that. We need them to say, it might be scary. And we might need them to be like, Uncle Phil, where he says, it's okay to be angry, or it's okay to teach you, you can have emotion.
Right.
You can live really, you don't have to put the fake face on and
Right.
pretend that something's different than it is, you know?
And my dad was like, my dad said, you have your moment, you have your fit. Okay, now let's move on.
Yeah.
Okay.
How do we do better from
Yeah.
here? How do we move on? Yeah. How do we
Right.
move on? That's good.
I remember I was telling a friend this weekend, when I first learned how to drive, I was so excited. And my parents had gone away for the weekend. And so I drove to my first job for the first time. And I was backing up way too fast in the parking lot. And I slammed into the car in the parking lot. And I'm just petrified. I was like, oh, now I got to call Dad. And the way he handled it was just perfectly, because I'm thinking, I'm going to get in trouble for this. I called him and said, hey, I got to tell you something. I said, I got into the parking lot. I hit the car behind me. I broke the taillight. There's some damage. He goes, are you okay? I said, yeah, I'm okay. He goes, well, thank goodness you got a job, because now you get to pay for this. He's like, hey, don't call me back again. This is important. In my mind, I'm thinking, and that time, because I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to get in trouble, but Dad will pay for this. I didn't get in trouble, and I had to pay for it.
Yeah.
And then that was his teaching, like, accept responsibilities. I'm not mad. You made a mistake. He said, next time you won't drive like a complete idiot through the parking lot.
Yeah. And you know what? Your dad did the exact, absolute right thing. I toyed with whether I was going to read this or not. Again, it's the book by Dr. Mark Hamby, You Have Not Many Fathers. But in his book, chapter 2, he begins by giving this little story. And I'm going to go ahead and read it as we get ready to wrap today up. But it says, order in the court. The judge demanded the composure of the courtroom with an authority that was absolute. He maintained structure with the skill of a surgeon so that the operation of justice could continue undisturbed. A child offender, a juvenile delinquent, stood before him. Little could be said in this case. The young man was undeniably guilty. He did not present any arguments. His only plea was for the court to show mercy. The father is present, but not close. He appeared only in an attempt to bail his son out of trouble again. He hoped that with a checkbook and pen, he could pay for his son's mistake. But the judge was not interested in his money. Instead, he asked for an account of where the father was while the child grew up. The father responded with a brief history of his own childhood. By the time he was born, his father had already left the family. He had to abandon his childhood to be the man of the house. Working hard for little pay, he cursed the father that he never knew for the poverty that he knew too well, and vowed that his son would never be poor. Standing in the courtroom, he admitted that his efforts to make a better life for his family, he rarely had time for fatherhood. But he pointed out the fact that he had afforded his son every luxury. However, when the judge looked down from his bench, he saw only an impoverished child with a lot of money whose crime was theft. He broke the law in an attempt to steal his father's attention. How should the court rule in such a case? The judge had compassion, but he knew the danger of leniency, where loopholes become vicious cycles that never end. He reasoned that it was better to use a bit of discomfort with a tight rein on mercy to lead this young man into maturity. The defendant was found guilty, and his father was held responsible. The sentence given to the son was 40 hours of community service to learn how to earn honor and respect. The father was required to pay a generous amount of attention to his son to learn the value of relationship. The gavel hit the bench the same way a hammer hits a nail into a sure place. The court had made its decision in favor of the future and condemned a dysfunctional past. Justice was served and relationships were secured by a judge who brought order into the court of father and son. And to me, that
was powerful.
Yeah, that we have an opportunity, men have an opportunity to be able to correct what was done wrong in the past. You know, in this story, the father had it so bad he wanted to correct it, but in correcting it, he forgot who was the important one.
Right.
And the child, he as the child suffered, and now his child was still suffering.
Right.
That we've got to get the priority right.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Ahead. No, you're exactly right.
Yeah.
Absolutely right.
Yeah.
That's incredible. There was a story I remember once where a young boy is working on a puzzle, and the father was busy. He was working, and the son kept bothering Dad. Can we go play? Can we go play? He goes, no, son, I don't have time. He took a picture of a magazine. It was a picture of the world, I believe, and he ripped it into pieces. He goes, put that together. little boy came back 30 seconds later. It's like, Dad, I'm done. He goes, how can you be finished? How did you put that together so fast? He goes, well, on the back of the world picture, there's a picture of the man. And I figured, well, if the man is right, then the world will be right.
Wow.
And so, that's a true story or not, but it makes
a great illustration, great story. Yeah.
I remember that all the time, and I love showing off my son. And I've, along with my own son, I think one of the benefits of being a teacher is not only tons and tons and tons of money. That was sarcasm.
Yeah.
But you get those intrinsic values of being able to pour into their lives. And I've had that opportunity with not only my own biological son, but with other young men who I've kind of taken on as sons, who they've come to me and talked to me. And in the beginning, it's, well, Mr. Benson, I can't do my homework. But now as they're becoming young men, it's been things of, well, Mr. Benson, I'm struggling with porn. I'm struggling with, how do I think this girl may be pregnant. And it gives me an opportunity to sit down and talk to them on a biblical worldview basis and say, okay, let's not worry about the past anymore. Let's draw a line in the sand. Let's repent. And let's try and make you the man that you need to be going on from here. And I think a lot of men, they shy away from that responsibility, whether it's their own biological children or other young men, because it's up to us to teach men how to be men.
Right.
And at the same time, I need to learn from other men as well while I'm doing that.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Right. A good community of men together.
Absolutely.
Good friendships and whether it's church in your life, I hope that it is, but that there are places we can go where we can have those kind of friendships to help us.
Absolutely.
And the journey doesn't end just because we reach a certain age.
Right. Absolutely.
The journey continues.
Yeah. You can learn something from all men. I just, I would just, anyone listening, be careful if you talk to any men who are Raider fans.
My brother is
you got to watch them. They're different.
I love it.
I'm kidding, kind of. Dallas Cowboy fans as well.
That's my husband.
I'm going to be quiet.
That's hilarious.
You can learn from all men.
That's right. Well, and this is a great opportunity to share too. Because you are a stand-up guy, and this is who you are as a man. You have a YouTube channel that we'd like to make everybody aware of, because you are trying to stand for what you believe is right, that you have righteous values in and out of the family, in the world, in politics, whatever's going on in the world. You guys talk about them.
Yes.
And so why don't you tell us, take a moment and tell us about
it. It's just me and my good friend, Brian. We've been friends for 20 years. You know him as Dr. Heller.
Dr. Heller.
Yes. You've been in the community for a while, and we started this channel a little over a year ago. At the release of this taping, well, actually last week's taping, we were excited because we reached the 10,000 subscriber mark.
Congratulations.
And I think that was just, I know it was God just blessing us, because I prayed for this channel not to be about me and Brian, but to be an impact channel in the lives of other people. And I'm sure you will experience this as well. You experience some hate and some visceral responses. But as Christians, as people of God, you just keep saying what's right. My hat's off to you, whereas me and Brian don't focus so much on the biblical aspect of things. You taking that extra step and doing the biblical aspect, my hat is off to you. And I applaud you for that in your channel. If you guys aren't following this lady, if you're not sharing this channel with everyone, you're missing the point. Okay, you got my channel, dime a dozen. But what Jaime Luce is doing, that's where the rubber meets the road.
Well, I appreciate that. But I do encourage people to go to your channel and subscribe, get notified, ring the bell, do what you got to do, share, like everything, all the platforms, all the stuff. We want all the stuff, right? Yes. And show our support for one another who are trying to stand up and do the thing that needs to get done. So
not just politically, but spiritually, we have a country to save.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, we got to do that.
We do. Well, thank you so much, Cedric, for joining me again today.
Always. Sorry, I was late.
That's okay. That's okay.
Sorry back there, Sean.
We'll do it again another time on another topic. And you'll have to say hello to my Dr. Heller for me. I
will. And I guess I say it again, I get just so much. I mean, I love your family, and being able to spend some time with your daughter and to see her become a mom.
Yeah. She made a special trip out just to see you last week. So
I appreciate that. I'll get emotional. So you should probably take us out.
Yeah, I know. Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. You can find me at jamieluce.com or on my YouTube channel. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all the places. That's where you can find me. Thank you so much, and join us again next week. God bless you.